Hi, I'm Nikos Kastrinos. I'm a political scientist who has spent his career studying the politics of research. Uh, I live in Belgium, in Brussels, and I spent 27 years working for the European Commission in its politics of research. And the last 12 of those, I was responsible for foresight. And in that period, I met Sheila Ronis and Leon Firth, who introduced me to Yanir and to the Unpolitics, and I'm grateful to all of them. And Yanir encouraged me to take on the subject of playbooks. So, um, yes, how do I start on this? Um, Many people believe that we learn history in order to avoid repeating the mistakes of the past. And yet, some of us go into parenthood, and in that experience, we learn that one of the reasons we learn history is that when the time comes to repeat the mistakes of the past, we know exactly what to do. So, how many people haven't had this experience? Oh God, I just told my kids that thing I promised myself that I will never say to my children. Yeah? This is how it happens. Basically, what we know, we learn from stories, memories, experiences, laws, models, recipes, thoughts, and so on. And this knowledge plays in our heads in strange and interesting ways that we don't fully control and understand. And we often wonder whether we are the authors of the play in which we play or whether somebody else has written it. And once you start dealing with foresight in the future, you very quickly realize that you are, to some extent, the author of your future, but most of the future you do not control. And on a lot of the future, you have some influence, but so have others. So the playbook is written by you and many other people. Uh, and so on. So we write some parts of the future and others write the other parts. Now, my slides were meant to move forward. How do we do this? Click on next. Sorry about this. Yes. Okay. So, what are playbooks? A playbook is typically seen as a set of strategies, rules, or systematic plans of action. But uh, in my mind, these vary a lot in comprehensiveness and detail, and you can have interesting tricks of the trade or comprehensive plans, and everything in between can be a playbook. And the idea is to help people make easy connections, to facilitate planning, enable action, to help anticipate what may happen, and so on. And some playbooks are written in plans and others are reconstructed, exposed. Some interesting ones for me are The Art of War, that has been very popular over the years. Niccolò Machiavelli's The Prince is one of the most popular playbooks in the field of politics. But I found reading Sebastian Hafner's Defying Hitler, which is a kind of memoir of Hafner, a very interesting reconstruction of the Hitler playbook, and Naomi Klein's the Shock Doctrine, another one. Now, in my life, in my working life, some of the standard playbooks I have encountered were the we have produced a non-partisan report from a reputable scientific institution that says that this is what politicians need to do. This is the standard lobbyist playbook, where the core skill of lobbyists are knowing the processes in which then their report is going to play to support this. A cynical person could say that the core skill of a lobbyist is to convince their clients that they're having an influence on the decision making. But over the
Seconds.
years, lobbyists have been responsible for some very, very powerful
Of
things like the impact, the carbon footprint is a classic lobbying playbook. a means of taking responsibility away from the oil companies and giving it to people.
Nikos,
One
you're down to just a little bit of time left.
Okay. The venture capitalists in California had a good one 20 years ago. They were asking, are you selling a painkiller or a vitamin? And if you sold a painkiller, they would support you. The activist playbook is one, you have more power than you think, and so on. And the idea is to convince people to take responsibility and do things and so on. Why don't they get it? Is a preoccupation that gets you a lot when you start dealing with playbooks. Well, there are some things in the way our brain works. There are some hardware issues. The classic is that we typically first evaluate and then analyze. Most people believe that it's the other way around, but that's wrong. What's happened is that the way our brain works means that some people can lock into patterns where they don't get it, but there are also social reasons, upbringing, education, and so on. And of course, there are strategies to trap people in these frames of mind and to often commit to lies and disinformation. Um, how can we help? What should we do about it? Well, a lot of focus is on communication and impact strategies and so on. As you go down my slide, the impact strategies get more and more comprehensive and forceful, but all these are things that you can itemize and focus a project on. But I think that for the time being, at least my idea is to develop a collection of playbooks to draw upon. And our colleague Niambura, in one of the groups I follow, has produced a wonderful list of small things that we need to do and think about. Unfortunately, she's not here to present this. Uh, my idea is to develop broader framing of projects. What are we collectively trying to achieve and so on, and see if we can develop our own innovative playbooks. For example, I know that a lot of people in this group think about using complexity science and analysis to target the right things. Now, what's most important for me about playbooks is this. A playbook is something that many people think as a way of defeating or subverting democracy in order for what's in their head to be the thing that happens. And I have a warning against this. I think that our politics playbooks must be first and foremost about flourishing democracy. And to that, I'll just draw on the quote of Elizabeth Anderson, a political scientist who wrote this wonderful sentence that I quote here. It says that the history of politics is littered with attempts to realize utopias that turned out badly, not just because of unforeseen circumstances, but also because the things that were brilliant in their minds materialized being horrible. So thank you very much. Sorry for taking a bit more time than Yanir had planned for me.